So, we're still talking about sets today, still applying it to our goal from yesterday, the part where we take the notation and things like that and apply it to Venn diagrams. We're going to be looking at some more problems, more specific ones, more IB type of questions that deal with your Venn diagrams. So let's take a look at this very first example that you see. It's kind of a situational thing. We'll do this one together fully all out. So the teacher asks her class how many of them study chemistry. She finds out that there are 15. Then she asks how many of them study biology, and she finds out that there are 13. Okay? Later she remembers that there are actually 26 students in her class, but 15 plus 13 equals 28. Has she miscounted? Some of them could take both. Okay? So technically, she kind of did miscount. She counted people twice when she had already counted before. Okay? So with these types of problems, you do have to be kind of careful of that. You got to be aware of that. Do we know how many took both? Okay? But we can actually find that out. All right? So on your foldable, however you want to do it, okay, for this particular example, what we're going to do is we're going to draw the Venn diagram for this particular example, this particular situation, okay? Now, of course, we're always going to have our universal set, which is that rectangle. You always, always, always include that universal set. And then how many circles are we going to have here?
2. 3.
Well, think about it. What subjects?
Biology.
Biology and chemistry. So we're going to have 2 circles. And we kind of did recognize that some of the kids are going to take both subjects. So these should be 2 circles that intersect each other. Not my best circles. And we're going to label them B and C, B for biology and C for chemistry. Okay? So far, so good? All right. So, we do not know how many are in the intersection, and whenever we don't know something in math, we always do what? Huh? Whenever we don't know something in math, what do we usually use? A variable, right? Like an x. And whenever we're solving an equation, we don't know what the answer is. We usually solve for the x, the variable. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to label the intersection x because that's what we don't know. We do not know how many students study both biology and chemistry. But we do know that there are, how many study bio? So I don't have to flip back. 15 study biology. So in this entire circle,
13 in biology.
Oh, 13 study biology? Okay. So in this entire circle that represents biology, I should have 13. The sum should be 13. But just in biology alone, I need to take away the number of students who study both to figure out how many study just biology. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's gonna be like a little bit like work math to figure out what x is, and then that'll be it. All right. How many study chemistry? 15. So in the full chemistry circle, I should have, the number should add up to be 15. But to figure out how many are just in chemistry, it needs to be 15 minus x. And together, all of these should add up to equal however many students are in their class, which is how many? 26. So that means that 13 minus x plus 15 minus x should equal 26 because that's how many students that she has in her class. It didn't say that there were some students who didn't take neither biology or chemistry. We're not there yet. We're baby stepping in, okay? Not needed because we're adding all of them together. So from here, it's pretty much just solving an equation, okay? Combine like terms. What's 13 plus 15? 28. What's negative x plus x minus x? Negative x equals 26. Solve for x. Should be solving for x. And what does x equal? It does equal 2. Subtract 28 from both sides. That's negative x equals a negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 1. And this is how you would show that there are 2 kids who That's how you would show that the intersection is 2. Okay? Like old school algebra. All right? Yeah, yes, you could have, but I also, like, I'm trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because there will be times where I ask, show that the number of kids who took both is this number, and then you have to go through and actually do the math to do that. Okay? Now, if it just says write down, then you could just be like, oh, well, that's just 2, So there's 2 kids that took both biology and chemistry. How many took just biology? Or what's going to be this? What's 13 minus 2? 11. What is 15 minus 2? 13. And let's just double check to make sure that our numbers should add up to be 26. 11 plus 2 is? 13 plus 13 is? 26. So then, yes, we did good. Okay?
So she didn't miscount?
Well, actually, she kind of did, because she counted 2 students twice.
Okay.
When she tried to count the biology kids separately and then the chemistry kids
So
separately.
our answer is yes, she miscounted?
Yes, she did miscount. Okay, but that's not the true question here. Like, that was just like a general throw out question here. Okay, the true questions that could really be asked at this point, you have the Venn diagram. I can ask you anything. I can ask you any of these. Now, do I expect you to write this down? No. Okay, this is the example that we're doing together. There's plenty more where like the questions are written down. Look at your Venn diagram. Now, I don't want you to shout it out. I'm going to hold up my hand and count down. Okay, so when I hit this, that means give me the answer to this question. Okay, so I'm going to put up my fingers, and I'm going to slowly count down. And when I do this, I want the answer. Okay, so use your Venn diagram, and I want you to tell me how many students studied biology only. Don't shout it out until I... Yes, because there's only 11 kids in this particular region who studied just biology. Next question. How many students studied exactly 1 science? How many students studied exactly 1 science?
Twenty-four.
24. Where's 24 coming from? One person raise their hand and tell me. Haley.
Combine the sciences.
Combine the sciences. Which numbers did you add together?
The biology and chemistry, not the both.
So not the both. So that was the 11 plus the 13. And yes, that is 24. So exactly 1. Number 3. How many students studied at least 1 science? At least 1 science. 26. At least 1. You got to be careful, because that could be either bio, either chemistry, or both. Okay? So that was the 11 plus the 2 plus the 13, and that's how you got 26. How many students study 1 science? How many students study 1 science? It is 24. Now, yes, you guys are like, well, wasn't that just the same question as number 2? Yes, there are different ways to ask the same question. There's different ways to ask the same question. Okay? Because y'all going to be like, well, why didn't they say? Because there's different ways to ask the same question. It's coming, all right? How many students do not study biology?
$13.
13. Because the students who do not study biology are the ones who study just chemistry or chemistry only. Be careful, because when you say chemistry, you're technically considering the whole circle. Are you're following me here? Okay. How many students do not study chemistry? 11. Because the students who do not study chemistry are the students who study just biology, or biology only. How many chemists study biology?
2.
Yes. Okay. So basically, it's asking how many students study chemistry, or how many chemistry students also study biology. Make sense? Last one. How many science students do not study both biology and chemistry? Actually, I'll give you a little bit more time. So how many science students do not study both biology and chemistry? 24. Okay? There are different ways to ask the same question. Now, one thing that we didn't have to worry about were the students who didn't study either of them. Okay? Everybody in that class was either in biology or in chemistry. There wasn't anybody who wasn't taking in science. And so you kind of got to be careful about that, because in questions like number 5, where it says how many students do not study biology, if there had been 3 kids who didn't study any science, they would have been a part of that answer. So don't forget, if there's anybody who's lying inside of the universal set, you got to consider those as well. Questions on this? All right, let's look at the next example. In a class of 29 students, 19 study German, 14 study Hindu, and 5 study both languages. Work out the number of students that study neither language. I'll give you guys a second to try to figure out this Venn diagram first before we go over it. How many students? Yeah. One student. You tell me one student did not study either language? Okay. Well, hopefully you set up a Venn diagram. I mean, if you didn't, you were able to just, figure that out. Well, then that's good. But these are notes, and this video could be helpful for somebody who's, not here. So, in a class of 29 students, 19 study German, so I need German here, and I need Hindi here. And there's some that study both. And we actually know how many study both. There were how many? 5. So that means that 5 goes in the intersection between G and H. So if 5 students study both, then how many students study just Hindi? 14 minus 5, which is 9. There are 9 students who study just Hindi. How many study just German? 19 minus 5, which is 14. So when I look at that, 14 plus 5 is 19. 19 plus 9 is 28. So there were 28 students in this class, correct? There were how many? 29. So then that means that you were right. There is one student who does not study either language. They probably study Spanish, they might study French, or they don't study a language at all. And that's your answer. So far, so good? Let's look at the next one. We'll look at this one together. It says 145 people answered the survey to find out which flavor of fruit juice, orange, apple, or grape, I know this is graph, just go with me, they prefer. The replies showed the following: 15 like none of the 3, 55 like grape, 80 like apple, 75 like orange, 35 like orange and apple, 20 like orange and grape, 30 like apple and grape. Find the number of people who liked all 3 types of juices, okay? Now you gotta be careful about this, all right? When it says that 55 people like grape, that means that full bubble that represents grape is 55. That includes, the intersection of the other circles as well. So the only time when it goes just in G or just in grape is if it says only or just grape. Like they use some keywords to indicate that. Okay? So we're gonna do this one together because the last one is another bless you. I believe the last one is another 3 bubble one, so I want you guys to do that one on your own. So I want to make sure that we're good here. So we need a universal set, and we do need intersecting circles with all 3. Because there are some people who like all 3 juices, some that like just the 2. And we want to make sure we label them O, A, and G. Sometimes they'll tell you how to label it, but if they don't, then it's up to you. But I wouldn't try to stray too far away from it. If it says orange, use O, apple, use A, G, use for grape. Hush. How many didn't like any of the juices? 15? So 15 didn't like any of the juices. So from the 145 people that they interviewed, that means that we should have 130 people that fit within the bubbles. You guys agree?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we do not know how many liked all 3, so that means we're going to label that what? X. which means that this region right in here, the one where orange, just orange and grape, or orange and grape only, what would go there? 20 minus x, because there were 20 people who liked orange and grape. So to figure out the ones who liked just orange and grape, not apple, we would do 20 minus x, just like how we did before. So we can do it extensively with the large ones as well. What about orange and apple? What's going to go up here?
35 minus x.
So 35 like orange and apple? And what about grape?
30 minus
So apple and grape. There were 30 people who liked both of those, so we have to subtract it from the ones who liked all three. Okay? What about the ones who liked just orange?
75 minus x.
Okay? So to get what's just an orange, there were 55 that liked orange altogether. So you actually have to subtract every single one of these. Okay. Oh, it was 75?
Oh, my bad.
It was 75?
Yes.
Okay. So you have to subtract the sum of all of these. Now this is where that like careless error can come into play. Because you basically have to add all three of these regions up right here and then subtract, do 75 minus that. So be careful. Put these in parentheses. 35 minus x plus x plus 20 minus x. Put all of those in parentheses because you're going to have to distribute that negative over. How many like apple?
80.
80. So then it's going to be 80 minus the sum of these three. 35 minus x plus x plus 30 minus x. And then what about grapes? So that's going to be 55 minus the sum of all of those. Questions on where these numbers came from? Now, of course, we can do some combining of like terms and things like that, okay? So if I distribute over this negative, it turns into a negative 35 plus x minus 20 plus x, okay? So that's really saying 75 minus 35 minus 20. What's 75 minus 35 minus 20? Confirmation? So this can really be written as 20. And then when I distribute the negative over to the variables, that becomes a positive x, a negative x, and then a positive x. So what is that? A positive x. So essentially, that just simplifies to be 20 plus x. Now, do you have to do this step? No, you don't. But instead of trying to write all of this out in one long line for potential that I might forget that I put a plus instead of a minus, it's just a little easier. What about A? What does A simplify down to be? Or only A, I guess I should say. So it'd be 15 plus x. And what about G? 5. All I do is combine like terms to make those long statements a little simpler. Any questions? So I'm just going to just get rid of this real quick. No, you want to leave it on there. Me,
I made a second circle.
Oh, you can do that too. All right. So now to figure out the value of x, to complete the Venn diagram, to figure out the number of people who like all three types of juices. Every single one of these pieces should add up to equal what? 130. Because we already took out the 15 from the people who didn't like any of the juices. So that left us with 130 people to work with. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to add all this up, set it equal to 130, solve for x. So 130 should have equaled 20 plus x plus 35 minus x plus 15 plus x plus 20 minus x plus 30 minus x plus 5 plus x. Woo! Now, you didn't have to write out that long line. You could have basically combined all your like terms and then wrote down that 130 equals 125 plus x. And then all you have to do to solve for x is, so x equals 5. So there are 5 people that actually liked all 3 juices. And then from there, you could fill in the rest of the Venn diagram. Okay? So just real quick, just to make sure that we're good, you would have 5 here. How many liked orange and apple only? 30. How many liked orange and grape only? How many liked apple and grape only? How many liked just orange? How many liked just apple? How many liked just grape? And if I were to add all the ones that are in my pink circles along with my 15, that would give me 145 people, which is what we started with. All right, tell me what numbers you added.
20 plus 20 plus 15 plus 30 plus 5.
You forgot about the 35 in the top a little bit.
Oh yeah.
All right. Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4 positive x's.
Oh, we got the middle one.
Yeah, you gotta include the middle, and then you have 3 negative x's. Any other questions? This one is on you. This one's on you, so I'm gonna give you about 6 minutes to do this one, and then we'll check to see how you did. All right. So you got 100 students who study 3 different subjects, which means that you should have 3 intersecting bubbles because it does say that 10 study all 3. So you have 3 intersecting circles. The first one, it says you have music, chemistry, and economics. Okay? And you have 100 students total, so that means everything that you add up in this entire diagram should equal 100. So it says that 10 study all 3. Okay? So 10 study all 3 means that 10 goes right in here. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Now, if 10 study all 3 and then it says 15 study chemistry and music, that means that this little intersection piece right here between music and chemistry should equal 15. Because it's not like it said study music and chemistry only. It said music and chemistry. So then the ones who studied only music and chemistry would be what? Would have been 5. And as you can see, the intersection between music and chemistry does add up to be 15. The intersection between music and chemistry adds up to be 15.
But then, so you put 5.
Right. So if I were to look at just the music and the chemistry bubbles, that means the intersection should be 15. And so this piece right here is indeed 15. Now the ones who studied only music and chemistry was 5. That took out the 10 who studied economics as well. So then, how many studied only music and economics? It'll be 7. Because total, music and economics should have been 17. 7 plus 10.
You mean Kevin? You mean Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin. Because you don't know music and economics.
See,
I do know music and economics. It's the next line.
it's Kevin econ. 17 is Kevin.
17 says music and economics.
It says Kevin.
Yeah.
It was different from the board.
Yeah.
Ours says Kevin.
I went based on the board. It says 17 study chem and
So then,
And we don't
so it makes sense then. So it makes sense then. Okay. I mean, that's also why I kind of did also leave it up here too. So,
I use it.
okay. So, I'm going to pause this. Now I want you guys to use the board to create your Venn diagram. All right. So, now that we got that fixed, 17 study music and music and economics. So that means that 7 study only music and economics. And then it says that 12 study chemistry and economics. So that means how many study only chemistry and economics? 2. Okay? Now it says 11 study music only, which means that in only music you should have 11. And then only chemistry study 6, so 6 there. And this is your complete diagram here. Okay? It gave you all the information. It's put in there. So that'll be your answer to A. Now it says write down the number of students who study music but do not study economics. How many students study music but do not study economics? Yeah, write down 16. There are 16 because you include the 11 who study only music and then the 5 who study music and chemistry together. So then that will be your answer to B. So if I go back, this answer, what was it again? 16. Now it says there are 22 economics students in total. Calculate the number of students who study economics only, which means that 22 should be in this circle. So how many study only economics? 3. And you get that because 7 plus 10 plus 12 equals 19. 22 minus 19 is indeed 3. And then you're asked to find the number of students who study none of these 3 subjects, because if you add up the purple and include the pink, that doesn't give you 100 students, which means that some students did not take any of these 3 subjects. Yes, definitely more than some. So when you add 11, 5, 6, 7, 10, 2, and then add 3, how many study none of those subjects? 56. 56? Because then that would be 22 plus 19 plus 3. So 22 plus 22? Yeah. Very good. Questions?